All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Real Talk. We are here on a Thursday afternoon, and we're just going to talk some shot, man. Brad, how are you?
Dude, I'm doing good. I am doing really good.
Yeah, we got a nice little slate today. We're going to talk some NFL news and notes. J.J. Watt, um, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson. And then after that's all done, we're going to go ahead and talk some NBA All-Star slash snubs. Um, so if you're sick of the Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson talk, feel free to fast forward. But I think you'll like it. So let's go ahead and let's get rolling. Let's start with J.J. Watt.
Yeah,
I'll let you kind of maybe take this story away. What you got?
yeah, sure. Obviously, we all follow the fact that he was kind of critical of the Texans late in the season. He's gone, and he's kind of just playing free agency. I mean, he's kind of shooting stuff out there, getting some talking going on. Obviously, everyone knows as a Steelers fan, it's fun to fantasize JJ coming, the third Watt, JJ and TJ playing on the same defense. However, I think we always knew that was a long shot. Steelers are trending downwards and they do not have the money either. So when you look at realistic destinations, um, I always kind of said the Bills need a front seven guy and they're trending upwards and they've got the quarterback and they were AFC championship game last year. And Sean McDermott seems to be doing a really good job with his defense with the pieces that they have. So um, yeah, I think the Titans are a good fit. Obviously, he gets to play the Texans twice a year, and they could use the help. Vrabel's really smart, and the Packers are kind of, his lifelong dream. In a way, he always dreamed about playing for the Packers or what it would be like, growing up in Wisconsin. But man, none of these teams are doing great for cap. I think the team that has the best situation is the Titans, even though it's not great. However, I think the Bills are going to get it done. I just think that that's the best fit. He stays in the AFC. They're primed to win their division again. It's almost a certain shot to the playoffs. Even if they don't, they should make the playoffs. I think if he wants the title chase and he wants a new environment, I think he goes to Buffalo. I think he plays in New York.
Yeah, I don't have too much to disagree on. Here's the biggest thing. Let's back up a little bit. I think in a perfect world, um, if the Steelers didn't have quarterback questions and they weren't um, negative 30 million under the cap, and again, there's been some restructures, and I think they'll do some more, but they have a ways to go. I think that would be the number one landing spot. As soon as this happened, everybody immediately Pittsburgh, 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 because it makes the most sense. And I
Mm-hmm.
think in a perfect world, I think JJ wants to be there. There are reports out there that there are offers that are between 15 to 16 million dollars for JJ, which I find funny. Honestly, I just don't think that JJ's worth that anymore, unless you're paying for everything, leadership, everything that goes along with it. But if you're just talking about production, I just don't know that he's worth. I don't know. I just kind of assumed that at this point he would allow a team-friendly deal, somewhere between $7 to $10 million, and he can play wherever he wants, anywhere. But if you're trying to rake in 15 to 16 million, you're going to struggle to get that. I mean, just for argument's sake, as of right now, only 13 teams could afford $16 million cap hit. So I'm sure that there are teams out there that if they did land him, you have the Tennessee Titans, the Buffalo Bills, and the Green Bay Packers. The Packers are a long shot right now because they have a lot of cap problems. But the Bills and the Titans are less than 4 million negative, so there's some room there to be made. I think what you would probably see is a larger signed deal that is extremely heavy in incentives. You play 85% of your snaps, we're going to give you
So many
X amount.
sacks,
So many
turnovers.
sacks. So absolutely. 100%. It's going to be extremely heavy incentive based for a team that has a bad cap situation. But I think of the teams that are readily available that could pay him today, a couple of teams that make sense. The Colts. I mean,
Yeah, if
in
it is elsewhere, teams could
the
definitely jump in if it's not those three.
yeah, for sure, the Colts they could offer him easily what he's asking or what he's thinking he's worth at this point in his career, and he could still win. Another great situation would be, I think, in my opinion, the Cowboys. I don't know how much of a winner they would be, but they definitely can pay him, and he stays in Texas. But ultimately, the team that I thought had the best shot outside of Pittsburgh from the very get. Pittsburgh always, in my opinion, had the right hand because of the brothers situation. Outside of that, it's the Tennessee Titans. He gets back, gets himself back in the relationship with Mike Vrabel, who was running the defense during his defensive player of the year years. He's the head coach of that team. He gets to play under him again in that defensive scheme. Potentially Clowney's there again. Lots to like. And you're the guy. You're not coming in there in packages. You're the guy because they don't have a pass rush. They have the worst pass rush in the league. So instant gratification of coming in there and being a locker room leader and an impact on the field. And if you gave him a heavy incentive-based contract, he could benefit from it in a scheme that he knows and being the guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So. And it could be anything, but if some of you were paying attention, J.J. Watt did have a random tweet on February 23rd out of nowhere that said, mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. And I just think it's funny, a lot of people are trying to, decipher what this means, But if you guys didn't know, the Mitochondria Research Center is located in Buffalo, New York. So I don't know what that means. You guys can take it for what it was. People are trying to break it down the best way they can. But it's just odd that he would say that randomly when the Buffalo Bills are in the hunt, and then it comes out he has 3 teams and they're one of them. Maybe he personally is trying to coax them to up the offer. I don't know what's going on, but J.J. Watt, it's interesting, but it seems to be narrowed down.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit of his old teammate, Deshaun Watson. It's pretty much been said that they're not accepting phone calls. It was reported today by Adam Scheffler that he did go out to dinner with newly acquired head coach. And he told him straight up at dinner that I don't plan on playing here anymore. So at this point, we could assume one of two things. He's either going to sit out or he's going to be traded. Any likely destinations that pop up in your head that we haven't already talked about?
No, I still think unless the team comes out of nowhere, I think the Bears, Broncos, Jets, Dolphins are the teams that I think is where he would go personally. I think they would give up the most for him. I still think it'll be the New York Jets or the Miami Dolphins. I think those are the two most likely destinations. Alluding to the dinner thing, a lot of people may see that story and, assume, oh, nothing we didn't already know. Well, technically, these are things that we assumed to be 100% true. It's actually really big news that he's finally communicating to the coach. He had no communication with the coach or GM and told him this is now officially him telling the staff, I'm not playing for the Houston Texans. That the whole premise of the Texans has been they have a belief they can fix the relationship. He has now told them, instead of hearing it through secondhand sources, that he's not playing for them. When they do open the phone calls, I think the Jets can give up a lot, but I also think the Dolphins could as well. When you talk about Tua, maybe even a defensive player, the third, 18th, and a next year first, or the Jets. Sam Darnold, the first or the second pick this year, 34th overall, and a first round next year. Those are the two teams that can give up the most, but with the no trade clause, it could be a better situation for them, like maybe the Bears could be, but the Dolphins seems to be the best for everybody involved.
I think the Panthers are a potential case too, and I think that if the Panthers were to get involved, it would almost have to include Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I think that would be a fun trade. McCaffrey and some first-round picks. I don't know. Here's the thing. The Texans don't want to trade him, so it's definitely going to take a haul. I think this is going to be a massive deal, unlike one that we've probably seen before. And I know that's probably the easy thing to say, but I think it's either going to – I think it'll honestly surpass everything that we've ever said. You know what? If you remember correctly, and I'm going to test your memory here, but early on in this pod, I called you and I said, Patrick Mahomes just signed an extension. And you said, if it's a penny under $400 million, they got a discount. And I'm like, it's not. So it was everything they thought. It was everything we thought and more. I think this will be that too. I think it'll be everything we think it is. 4 first-round picks, 3 first-round picks, and probably more. It'll probably be in the vicinity of a player,
Yeah.
3 first-rounders, and then some back-end picks, second
And
or third.
and the Panthers, just recently over the past week and a half, they've freed up some salary cap space. They now currently sit at eighth most with around 31 million in cap space. And I believe I'd have to recheck, but I believe there was a story that Teddy Bridgewater may have unfollowed the Panthers on Instagram. I know that's like a
That's
little
out there.
side story,
That's
but
out
but that matters. Like your social, you know, the things that you have in your biography and who you follow, it really matters. It's the same way with Watson, when he unfollows the Texans and changes his occupation to athlete, like those things matter. So if Teddy Bridgewater's, getting another slight that he's not going to be the guy and they're going to be looking forward and they're freeing up all this cap space, and people talk about coaches with the most power. I mean, Matt Rule signed a 10-year contract. They're kind of locked up with this guy for a while. He can do whatever he wants. And if he went all defense in the draft and has all this cap space, I think they would. Christian McCaffrey and Deshaun Watson are equal talent at their position, but quarterback's more important. So if it was Christian McCaffrey, 2 firsts and a third, hypothetically speaking, and if Deshaun says that's one of the few locations he'll go, that might bring down the price simply because they can't get a trade with someone who's willing to give up more.
And unfortunately, you're not going to get a trade done with somebody that has another quarterback. I don't see a premier quarterback being traded unless it's the Raiders. For some reason, I think Carr could be involved in a trade. Outside of that, I don't see anybody doing a quarterback for quarterback trade. I'm not including Tua. I'm not including Bridgewater. Those
some
are
people, yeah.
Trubisky.
Some people who are listening to what you just said, a lot of people will look back to a report that came out from the Raiders that said we're not interested in trading Derek Carr.
Yeah,
when the Colts inquired about him, if Deshaun Watson was involved, they would absolutely, at the drop of a hat, get rid of Derek Carr.
yes.
And I think he'd be silly to think otherwise. Nothing against Derek Carr. I think he's a good quarterback, potentially around the 10th to 12th best quarterback in the league, maybe even in the top 10 a little bit. But that's for another day. When you're talking about Deshaun Watson, he's one of the top 6, and it's not arguable.
I was thinking about this. Nick Wright, famously, he's been out there with this opinion, but he said that he thought it would be an interesting idea to trade your first-round pick every year he's up with the team, and we'll cap it at 10. I had a different idea. What if, and again, it really depends on what players would be involved, but what if a team offered, again, 3 first-round picks, and then rather than a 4th first round, it becomes a 2nd, and then every year that he's on the team, you get a descending pick until you hit the 7th overall pick or 7th round pick, and then you're clear. After that, it's clear.
When I hear stuff like that, it's incredibly fun to start thinking about the possibilities, but I do think it's totally unrealistic. I think when a team gets to that, they would never have to make a deal like that in order to acquire a player. If they offered 3 firsts and a 2nd, instead of adding that descending picks, you could just hold the line there. And if they want to eat the contract of Deshaun Watson and let him sit, that's fine. But he stated he's not putting on the 4 for the Houston Texans. So as fans of the NFL, like you and I are, we could potentially be robbed of Deshaun Watson for a year or two if they decide to be stingy and not give in and trade the player, which would be incredible. And again, if that's the route it takes, I stand by my opinion that it could get so bad for the Texans that it's a potential relocation of a team. Someone else buys it and relocates the team. I just think there's too many people on Deshaun Watson's side over the Texans. It's just bad PR all over it.
There are people out there that, what am I looking for here? They're more team guys than they are player guys. I consider myself both, but I definitely try to side with the player because, the player's a millionaire, the owner's a billionaire. You know what I mean? It's not close. But I guess the thing that would stand out to me is, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, the NBA is a league of player mobility. Everybody knows this. Players, if they play 5 years with a team, you're loyal. You know, like Damian Lillard's played like I don't
People
know
are like,
eight
why
eight
is
years.
Bradley Beal still a Wizard? Like,
Yes, yes. Bradley Beal, great example. He got drafted in 2012. Okay, he's been there 10 years. He's a loyal player.
yuck.
You know, it's pretty crazy. He came in the league like 19 years old.
Yeah.
But the NFL tries very hard to not be that. First off, they have the franchise tag. Okay, players don't just demand trades. They don't do that, especially not star quarterbacks. And we're going to talk about another one here in just a second. But like, I almost feel like the owners have gotten together, and because in my opinion, this deal would have already been done. He's 25 years old, and he's a top 6 quarterback in this league. This deal would have been done. In my opinion, I think there's owners out there that don't want this to be done because they're setting a precedent. All these GMs and all these owners come together and say, we're not going to ring your phone off the hook, as bad as we want a player like him, because we don't want this to happen. And now Russell Wilson, let's go ahead and translate right into it. Russell Wilson's now potentially asking for a trade. And per his words, he has not demanded a trade. He has not asked for a trade, but
he said he prefers to stay in Seattle.
But if there's a market for him, because he has a no trade clause, he opened up his list, okay, per reports, the Cowboys, the Saints, the Raiders, and the Bears.
And that's Adam Schefter, so you have to take it for what it is.
If Schefter's reporting it, I'm enough to say it out here on the pod.
Now, potentially, if there's a trade from a random suitor that comes in and the Seahawks come to us, they're like, hey, we got this monster offer, but it's from Miami. We want to take it. Would you want to play in Miami? He could potentially, go home, talk to the wife, and say yes. It's not definitive that these are the 4 teams. These are the 4 teams we'll probably talk about because that's who Russell said. But, yeah.
I don't understand. I don't understand how the Bears are on this list. First off, they're negative $6 million in cap. They have a good coach, not a great coach, and their roster's middle of the pack in the league. Okay, Vegas, they have a good coach, not a great coach. I don't even know if he's good. We'll call him good for argument's sake. And they're negative $18 million against the cap. Okay, the Saints, Hall of Fame level coach, but terrible cap situation. Negative, the worst cap situation in the entire league. But they do have offensive help and things of that such nature. So there's some things to talk about there. And then the Cowboys is the only one that really makes total sense because the Cowboys could literally tag Dak, trade Dak, and Dak could sign a long-term deal with the Seahawks. So it does sort of make sense there. I don't know. I'm just like...
A few things I looked at when I saw this. One of the things was if he goes to the Saints, he gets to play against Brady twice. If he goes to the Bears, I know, but if he goes to the Bears, he gets to play Rodgers twice. If he goes to the Raiders, he gets to play Mahomes twice. And if he goes to the Cowboys, it's just an easy division for him to win, or you would think.
Walking to the Super Bowl, or he's walking to the playoffs every year.
But another thing I look at is the cities: Chicago, New Orleans, Dallas, Las Vegas. I think his wife has a lot to do with that too. And I also think a lot of these teams would allow him to have a lot of freedom. It would be a complete switchover from what he has now. I know they're not on his list, but in terms of resources, if he was to be traded this year, I still think New York has all the resources to go get whoever they wanted at quarterback.
The Jets can acquire anybody they want.
And the cap space to be able to build a brand new team. And that's why because right now when you just look at the Jets, it's like they're so bad, why would anyone want to go there? But if a Deshaun or a Russell went there, you talk about the Allen Robinsons and the Richard Shermans and the Shaq Barretts and the Von Millers and these guys who are going to be free agents. Why not go be part of something new? I just that's what I think of there. I don't anticipate Russell Wilson being traded this offseason. But if
I agree with you.
If he is, I think it would be the Bears. Mitch Trubisky's okay, and he would be a great quote-unquote puppet for Pete Carroll. Just run the ball, play action, let the defense win it. Because I believe in a trade, it could be Mitch and either Roquan Smith or Khalil Mack. One of those two, along with 2 first-rounders. If you gave 2 first-rounders, a quarterback who started in the NFL, and a Pro Bowler on defense.
Who just got traded for 2 first rounders. So he's essentially 2 first rounders.
Right. I look at Khalil Mack because Bobby Wagner's already in the middle of your defense. If you had Mack, you'd have Mack, Wagner, Jamal Adams. And another reason I thought Jets, I know Russell, the no trade clause is the only thing in there, but the Jets and Seahawks have obviously done business before in the Jamal Adams trade. So the picks you acquired from Jamal Adams, you could essentially give back to them, plus a Sam Darnold and maybe another pick and acquire Russell Wilson. That's just my thoughts on the trade, if it's possible. But what we can establish is that not as bad, but like no one knew things were bad with Antonio Brown and the Steelers. And then as soon as one story got out, they were coming left and right on how bad things were. Now, Russell's a totally different guy, but at the same time, everything's all nice. He's been sacked 394 times in 9 seasons. Then when he accepts the award at the Super Bowl, he's sitting next to the commissioner watching Tom Brady just not get touched. So he goes to Pete Carroll and asks about inquiring about getting offensive line help. He's dismissed. A story just came out how before a Thursday night football game, he went to the coaching staff and the GM and talked about his ideas for a game plan and was just dismissed. He is just a pawn at the Seahawks in their eyes. But if he went somewhere else, he would get all the power and be able to have a lot of input, and that matters to a guy like Russell Wilson. And I think there's always been like a sub story that Sierra, his wife, doesn't like it in Seattle. She wants to be in a bigger city, maybe even more central in America. And when you look at Las Vegas, New Orleans, Chicago, and Dallas, it's all right down the middle of the country.
Yeah.
So I think his wife being a global superstar as well has a lot to do with what situations he looked at and decided on this 4-team list. I don't think it's all him. That's why I think some of these teams, it's like, what? But the Saints are so far under the cap, I don't even know how it's fathomable for them to acquire a guy like Russell Wilson.
Yeah, that would need some.
They would have to include Michael Thomas in the deal and probably Cameron Jordan too. Like 2 first, Cameron Jordan, Michael Thomas, sell the whole team and just start anew with Russell Wilson.
Taysom Hill, like literally everyone. I mean,
they already have to almost blow up their operation. It would just be instead of releasing and cutting these guys, they just send them in one big package to start over. But I guess that's more of a question for another time. We got plenty of free agency in the draft coming up in 2 months from now, guys. If you didn't realize that, 8 weeks till the draft. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Well, I think that pretty much, for the most part, wraps up the NFL talk. We'll take a quick sec here. We'll get into the NBA. The NBA All-Star Game is going to be Sunday, March 7th at 6:30 p.m. Last year's game was great. The end of it, the way they changed up the structure. The first 3 quarters are your standard quarters, score as much as you want, and then the last quarter they take whoever has the most points and they add 24 points to that, and that's the final score. So it's both teams have to then battle to that. So if one team's down by 20, they have to score 44 points, where the team that goes in with the lead only has to score 24.
24, yep.
And that's for Kobe Bryant. So with that being said, the All-Star Game will be happening, but we're here to talk about something before the All-Star Game, the teams and the snubs. Let's go ahead and write down the list of the East. Kevin Durant is the top vote getter for the East, followed by Giannis, Bradley Beal, Joel Embiid, and Kyrie Irving. So that's your top 5. That's your starting lineup, okay? Going into the reserves, you have Jaylen Brown, James Harden, Zach LaVine, Julius Randle of the Knicks, Ben Simmons, Jason Tatum, and Nikola Vucevic.
Nikola Vucevic.
Sure, yes.
It's Vucevic.
And they're going to be coached by Doc Rivers. Going into the West. Going into the West. LeBron James, the top overall vote getter, as well as the West vote getter, followed by Steph Curry, Luka Doncic.
Who was that?
Luka Doncic.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
Nikola Jokic, Kawhi Leonard. That is your starting 5. As for the reserves, you have Anthony Davis, Paul George, Rudy Gobert, Damian Lillard, Donovan Mitchell, Chris Paul, and Zion Williamson. And as that team will be coached by Quinn Snyder, the Utah Jazz head coach. The latest news that we do have is that Anthony Davis, who is injured for 4 weeks, is going to be replaced by Devin Booker. Let's go ahead and of everything I just read here, let's start in the East. Obviously, a big topic this time of year is always All-Star snubs.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a couple that come to mind as far as just like it's crazy. Let me go ahead and start here.
Yeah.
It is wild that in 2022, if I told you a player is averaging, I'm not going to tell you the player's name. A player is averaging 19.9 points per game, 9.7 rebounds per game, and 9.7 assists per game. Would you assume they would be an all-star?
It's borderline triple-double. I would assume that they are an all-star.
But if I told you that player was Russell Westbrook,
he's
not making the all-star team. And to be honest, of all the snubs, there's a lot in the East.
Yes, the East, like, I had a lot of stuff
he's
going on.
He's fourth on my list as far as like down the chain. I mean, is there somebody that sticks out to you that you're like snub East?
Well, I guess like the stat line is one thing, but it is a lot about the eye test too when you watch him play. And with the structure of fan voting, I feel like Russell Westbrook's a character that might not get a lot of fan votes. A lot of fans might have problems with him, and the efficiency of which he plays. He's missed a lot of games too. But I thought Sabonis and Trae Young immediately came to my mind as people who didn't make the list. I thought that was pretty crazy. Sabonis has been having a pretty good year for the Pacers. And 21 points, 11 basically 12 rebounds and 6 assists.
Yeah.
I thought he was playing really well, but a guy who plays for the Indiana Pacers, I guess, could get lost a little bit because no one's really paying attention to him. I've got a minor snub. I think Harden should have been the starting point guard over Kyrie Irving. I think some people agree with that. But the bigger hot take is I don't think Kyrie Irving should have even been an all-star. And I know that's a lot of like craziness, but I also feel the same.
You're onto something.
I feel the same way about Anthony Davis, and it's not because of how good they are. They're obviously elite top players, and their stat lines are good too. I just think if you missed 10 games before the All-Star break, you've missed a quarter of the season thus far.
Yeah.
And I feel like being on the court also matters a little bit when you're voting for All-Star. So when you have a guy like Trae Young, who scores 27 points a game, 9.5 assists, I feel like to leave him out, but a guy like Kyrie Irving, who's missed 10 games, is in there. Like, he's averaging more points. Well, they're averaging the same amount of points, but he's averaging almost double the assists.
So,
and talk about over 10 more games.
Yeah. Okay, can I hop in?
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't know if you would talk about Trae Young.
Trae Young.
I have a lot to say about Trae Young. And I'm not going to diss the starting fives only because the starting fives are heavily fan voted. That's why Kyrie is starting over James Harden, because his stats aren't as good as James Harden.
It's the fan vote.
It is the fan vote. Okay, so that's very important to know. Here's some stats on Trae Young. This didn't take long for me to figure out either.
It's insane.
So Trae Young this year is averaging 27, 4 rebounds, 9.5 assists at 43.8% from the field. Okay, he is currently listed as the 17th most efficient player in the league. What's efficient, you ask? Basically means efficiency, and that is your basic individual statistics of points, rebounds, assists, steals, blocks, minus turnovers, and shot attempts, obviously. So it's correlated all into one, and you're given a score. Okay. For argument's sake, if you're like, okay, what's really good? Jokic is number one in the league at 36.6, and that's a pretty great number. Is Giannis is 33.5. Okay, so at 17 is Trae Young, 26.1. Keep that number in mind. Back to Trae Young. In the league this season, I'm just going off this season, there are 10 players averaging 27 points per game. Guess how many of them missed the All-Star game? 1, Trae Young. Okay? Of those 10 players, guess how many of them average 9.5 assists per game? 1. That is Trae Young. Okay? Now, there are more that average 9, Luka. Okay?
Right, yeah.
9.2 or whatever. But he is number 1 of those players in assists per game.
Right.
Even if by a low margin. And, okay, let's just, for argument's sake here, Damian Lillard averages 8. Luka averages 9.2. And Trae Young averages 9.5. So, of the 10 players that average 27 points per game, nobody else even averages 7. So he's one of 3 guys to average 27 and 8. So, okay, rebounds come into play. What's good rebounding numbers? In my opinion, it's 7 or more. Okay, guess how many guys average that? 3, 9, 7.5, and 10. I'm sorry, and 8. So 4 guys average 7 or more rebounds. So it's like, why couldn't we get Trae Young in? Of 10 players in the league this year that are averaging 27, he was the only one left out. That would never happen in years past. And I don't know if it's because the league is going to a point where everybody is just so stat heavy. But you're like, well, okay, what else sets him apart? Well, I'm not done. I mean, I'm going to set him apart right now. So players that he is more efficient than this year. He's more efficient than Ben Simmons, Rudy Gobert, Jason Tatum, Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and Donovan Mitchell. All All-Stars. There's plenty more, but those are the All-Stars that he's more efficient than.
You look at like a quick take, Jaylen Brown from the Celtics.
Yes.
Averages 4 less points.
Yep.
Averages 6 less assists and less than 2 rebounds. It's actually he averages 5.5 rebounds to Trae Young's 4.
Yeah.
And his assist numbers 9.5 to 4. Like,
it's not close. Yeah.
Yeah, like Trae Young in any draft would probably be picked over Jaylen Brown right now, period. And then Tatum, I mean, as much as I like Tatum personally, on the Celtics, if you did a blind test and put Tatum and Brown's numbers next to each other, you wouldn't really know which one's which. They're both the same player, essentially.
Yeah.
And you have Trae Young, who's playing better than both of them. And Ben Simmons, I get that he's averaging 8 points and 8 assists, which are really good numbers. But, like, he's only scoring 15 points a game. Trae Young almost has double that with more assists. And sure, Ben Simmons is 6'10". He's beating him in rebounds. Congratulations. But I just you turn on any TV, and there's no way you can miss Trae Young. There's games where Ben Simmons might disappear offensively or this or that. Trae Young was a huge snub.
I don't have the stats in front of me because I don't have time to go back and do all the history checking.
Right.
But I did a quick Google search of the 10 worst NBA All-Star snubs of all time. Okay. Of the top 10, only one player on the entire list averaged 27 or more points per game. It was in 1971 to 72. Nate Archibald averaged 28, 9, and 3. Of those numbers, Trae Young was literally better than him. I mean, he averaged a point less, he averaged more assists, and he averaged double the rebounds. It's just like I don't know. What happened that Trae Young missed the All-Star game?
Maybe because he's second in the league in turnovers, but like if you want to go by that, say it's like, well, he's second in the league in turnovers. Well, who's won? Russell Westbrook. See, there's a pattern. That's why they didn't make it.
Who's 3?
Let's go 3 through 9.
Yeah,
Luka, Harden, Levine, LeBron, Giannis, Booker, Sabonis.
Yeah,
that's your next. They handle the ball a lot. Of course,
yeah.
4 turnovers a game is 1 a quarter. You'll live with that. You'll live with that out of your point guard and best player.
If they're dropping 30 a night, yeah, you'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. And out of those guys, 1, 2, 3, only 3 average more points, and it's Giannis, Levine, and Luka. All stars. I mean, all these guys are all stars. You want to skip Embiid because he doesn't have, the or the all stars after Sabonis, who also got snubbed. I think Embiid, Beal, Lillard, Jokic, Simmons, Randall, all guys that are on the all-star team. Is it a fan vote? Do people not like Trae Young? Like, how does this get missed? I don't know. And you're like, well, who do you remove? I could move Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, or Ben Simmons, but I feel like they all have a bigger following and they get more votes. I don't want to say straight up the structure's flawed because of one guy, but that's why I had Trae Young in for maybe Kyrie, and it's simply because of games missed. It has nothing to do with ability,
Yeah.
scoring, popularity. The team's record's phenomenal. I just think if there's 33 games into the voting and you've missed 10 of them, I know your numbers are good, but you also have two other teammates that are on the All-Star team. I just I thought it was crazy that you could make it. And same thing with Anthony Davis. I mean,
Well, the Anthony Davis one is different than the Kyrie one, only because of the starters are picked by fan voting. Several years ago, I forget the year. I want to say it's 2009. I want to say that's the year. Allen Iverson started the All-Star game, and he was averaging like 14 points a game. But it's Allen Iverson, so he gets voted in. Tracy McGrady one year had only played like 4 games. He was hurt and was leading the vote getters in the West over guys like Kobe and Dirk at the time, and ended up finally getting punched out at the last second. But he was going to be awarded a starting gig. It's like, I'm not saying the system's flawed because it's the All-Star game. They want it to be fan friendly, but at some point we have to really consider some things.
and
And
I
at
don't.
the end of the day, Jaylen Brown is the best guy, because I'm a firm believer is, don't tell me somebody was snubbed until you tell me somebody's coming out. Don't just argue that somebody got left out. Cool. There's 10 other guys that have great numbers too. But truly, he needs to be in over probably Jaylen Brown, in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's the only thing about Anthony Davis with him missing 10 games and still making the reserves. I was looking and I was like, I don't I don't even know who really got snubbed in the West. I mean, I was trying to look for it and I was like, Brandon Ingram maybe. Christian Wood was playing lights out, but then he was hurt for so long. Or like there just wasn't really much conviction. But yeah, when it came to the East, I was like, I mean, you look at a guy like even Bam Adebayo, 20 points or 19.6
Yeah.
points, 9.6 rebounds, 5.5 assists, 1 steal, and 1 block. I mean,
I
he's
thought he was averaging 2 and 2,
uh,
regardless.
well, either way, he's doing it on both ends of the floor. And to be a center or a big man that's averaging 5.5 assists, also, I just think you look at a guy like that and it's like, you know,
I just don't understand it. Like, for me, the only person in the West that I felt was quote unquote snubbed was Devin Booker, and the guy that got in over him that shouldn't have, in my opinion, was his own teammate. Now I know you're like, well, Anthony Davis, but when Anthony Davis is out there, 22 and 8 is, and we know he's a force. He's
yeah.
going to give you some blocks and everything else, but Chris
I
Paul at
I
16
mean,
and 8 just wasn't enough for me to get in over Booker.
but when you're talking about Anthony Davis, you said 22 and 8 with 3 assists.
Yeah,
Bam Adebayo's putting up 19 and 10
yeah,
with 5.5 assists. I mean, if you want to look at just stat lines, Bam Adebayo is Anthony Davis this year.
yeah,
And now Anthony Davis is having a down year. He's usually better. He's been dealing with the lower leg injury, and Anthony Davis, we know what he can be.
yeah,
But like in terms of numbers, him and Bam Adebayo, or you look at Sabonis, 21.5 points, less than a point off from Anthony Davis. 11.7 rebounds, that's 3 more. 5.7 assists, that's pretty much 3 more. Like Nick Sabonis is playing unbelievable basketball, and you look at a guy like Jaylen Brown or a Ben Simmons, and it's like, I don't know. That's why I feel like the three guys that got snubbed, I feel like Kyrie's an easy guy to take the bullet to get out of there because he's missed 10 games.
yeah.
But it is voting, and he got the most votes, which I couldn't believe he got more than Harden. That blew my
Kyrie
mind.
has a very large following.
Yeah, Uncle
Part of it,
Drew.
part of it's the shoes. Yeah, the Uncle
Uncle
Drew
Drew.
thing, the shoes. He has a very large following with the kids and everybody else. For me, the West, there wasn't a lot of quote unquote snubs.
Teams, but those individual guys that are putting up
Yeah,
light numbers.
But the East is bad. The East has been pretty rough this year. I mean, this isn't really a pod we're gonna do standings and
What
stuff.
they
But
do 1 year?
what's that?
How many people make the reserves? There's 5 starters, and is there 8 reserves?
I think it's hang on here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 reserves.
Okay,
13, 18.
they should
So
take. You get the 5 starters, and you should take the 2 guys who got the best grades. Is it voting for the reserves as well?
no, um, it's a committee, and then I think the coach gets 1 or 2 extra picks. Like so years ago, the Pistons had 4 All-Stars. Their coach was the All-Star coach, so he took 2 Pistons. A couple of years ago, the Warriors did the same thing. Steve Kerr he brought in Draymond Green and Klay Thompson. Like, so I mean,
So
I have a
here's
feeling Rudy Gobert probably got in because I mean, Rudy Gobert's numbers are not eye-popping. 14 points a game and 13 boards.
I just
What's
think,
Andre Drummond averaging?
I don't know.
It's probably damn near close.
I just think it would be fun if maybe on All-Star weekend you take like the 3 guys who had the lowest amount that got on the All-Star team, and the 3 first guys left off, and you did a 3-on-3 to 21 on the first day of the All-Star game or All-Star weekend.
Yeah,
Just who gets to play in the All-Star game. Little 3v3 to 21.
love it.
Or make a little one-on-one tournament out of it. Just like have a little fun. I know. Well, you can't have a center play a point guard and this and that, but like do something like that to give guys a chance to earn their way into the All
I
Star game.
love that. I love that.
Close. I feel like that would get a big following. I think that
Yeah,
would be
because All-Star Weekend, first off, I know you kind of joked the other night at poker that the dunk contest isn't good or whatever, but I've always liked the NBA
Like it.
All-Star Weekend. The dunk contest, the three-point, the skills, it's all been fun. A couple years ago, they used to do what was it called? I forget the name of it, but it was basically a team, okay? And it consisted of a former athlete for a certain team, a current athlete for the same team, a WNBA athlete for the same city, and then was that it? I think that was it. Okay, so a WNBA, a current athlete, and then a former athlete. Okay, so and what they would do is they would do a series of shots, and they would have to end with a half-court shot. That went away. There's still more time.
It's like the layup, throw the point,
yeah.
and then the half.
I'll tell you what you just said, a 3-on-3 would fit All-Star Weekend perfect. It's just a game of 21. Just a game to 21.
Yeah, just to see who gets to play in the All-Star game.
Not
they all made
it half court, old school style, like you're on the court.
All-Star Weekend.
Yeah.
Or instead of having the All-Star game like that, if you said there's 5 starters, 7 on the bench, 12 and 12, that's 24. The top 8 vote getters are captains, and they get to pick 2 people to be on their 3-on-3 teams, and you do a 3-on-3 tournament half court. So the top 8 vote getters, it goes from 1 to 8 snake order, and they all get to pick 1 guy. 24 All-Stars are still there, and you take your 3-on-3 and you have a little tournament, and it can be like an all-day thing. Or I just think they could do something more fun like that. I think it would be more fun. You get people a little bit more competitive, like the smaller teams would give them that drive. I just think it would be really fun.
Yeah. As far from back to the snub thing, the East definitely got they got several snubs. Middleton, we didn't even talk about him. 21-6-6. I mean, it's crazy.
But the East is too competitive, I think.
What do you mean as far as stats?
Yeah, right. Like,
yeah.
Playing good, and the Bucks are playing well, but like 21-6-6. I mean, I don't know. That's solid. I still don't think it should be over Trae Young though. How did Trae Young that?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Now, and remember, Jeff said he looked up a list. Now, not all lists are definitive, but top 10 snubs all time. And Trae Young's on this list, people. Like, it's incredible. And how much fun was it when him and Luka were in it last year? There's still that half-court shot. Like, and they traded for each other in the same draft. A lot of people overlook that, or people don't pay attention to the draft. The Hawks took Luka, then the Mavericks took Trae Young, and they traded. It was like a Phillip Rivers, Eli Manning draft day thing. And it was just cool to see them doing that. And we thought, that's a future of the All-Star game for a long time.
Yeah.
One plays in the East, one plays in the West, red versus blue, everything.
Yeah.
And then it was, I don't know, I feel like we got gypped of another moment between those two from the same draft class. And I'm not hoping someone from the East gets hurt, but he's the next man up if someone decides that they don't want to play. If Durant's still out, resting, I know he's the captain, but even though it's his team, but I worry that Sabonis could get in over Young simply because of positional need or however it works. But
I know you noted Sabonis' stats and stuff. I don't know if you said this. He's shooting. This is crazy. He's shooting just under 60% from the field doing those numbers. And he's the number 9 most efficient player in the whole league. So, I mean, he definitely has an argument over Trae Young. But Trae Young, I mean, come on, 27 and 9.5. That is, we don't see that. We just don't see that.
I think it was Andrew Bradish. It might have been someone else. I'm sorry if I'm getting it wrong, but they put up numbers that I think Jokic, Sabonis, and only one other guy in the league are putting up those numbers from the big men positions. And it was like 21, 9, and 5 or whatever it was. And, or 21, 10, and 5 or something, 20, 10, 5. It might have been 20, 10, 5. But either way, the guy's a stud.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't really have much. If you guys were listening to that, which I hope you were, notice how we did not talk about how Lillard should start over Luka because that's just a dumb argument. I don't know who's talking about that.
I'm not sure why that's even a thing.
Yeah. I don't know. So, because I know a lot of people are putting it up there on Facebook, but like, I don't know.
It doesn't make sense to me. If we're gonna even try and argue it, I think it's a closer argument for Curry and Lillard. Not that I think Lillard needs to be in over Curry.
Do want to say one thing though, because I know y'all hear that. A lot of you roll your eyes because I be all up on Luka, but Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum has missed 20 games, and
Is he really? Wow.
And their center, Nurkic, I think his name is.
Yeah.
I think he's only played 13 or 16 games or something like that. Lillard's doing this without his 2 other guys. So
they're the 5th seed. And if that team was in the East, they would be the 4th seed. I mean, borderline 3 seed.
So it's a testament to the whole team, sure, but obviously we know that Lillard's he's the guy. So no disrespect to Lillard, but come on.
Absolutely. Well, I think that pretty much wraps her up.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. You guys, I'm sure we'll be back next week with some more NFL off-season headlines and current NBA talk. And,
No matter what the podcast is about, it's impossible to keep NFL out of it. You guys know that. It's an NFL world. There might be certain leagues that are dominating at certain times when the NFL's not there, but it's the NFL's world, and we're just living in it.
Absolutely. And we are right on the heels of the draft, as Brad alluded to. And I think we'll potentially maybe do a NCAA tournament here coming up for March Madness, so be on the lookout for that. And with that being said, Michigan tips off with Iowa tonight. I got a college hoop poll up for a couple of Big Ten games. Make sure you guys go vote in that, get involved, and I think that's it.
State too. Don't forget about that game.
What's that?
State plays State.
Yeah, absolutely.
None of those teams are going to matter come late bracket because they can't beat Michigan. So
that's right. Go Blue, baby.
Good teams.
Good teams. All right, guys, it's been real. Thanks you again, and take care. Go Blue.
You guys.